Introduction and meaning of a sole trader. Hi everyone and welcome back to Franklin Borgia Tutoring. In our previous lesson, we looked at users of financial information, the different people and groups who may be interested in the financial story of a business. We are now moving into business ownership structures. A business can be owned and organized in different ways. Instead of rushing through all of these structures in one lesson, we are going to take them one at a time. This video focuses only on the sole trader. In the following videos, we will look separately at partnerships and companies, and later companies compare the different structures. So what's a sole trader? A sole trader is an individual who owns and runs a business. There is only one owner. The word sole simply means one or only, and a proprietor is an owner. In Australia, we normally use the term sole trader. The important idea is simple. One person owns the business. There is one common misunderstanding to avoid. A sole trader can employ other people. The word sole does not mean that only one person works in the business. It means that there is only one owner. The owner usually provides the starting or initial capital, makes the main business decisions, receives the profits after expenses and tax, and also bears the risks and losses of the business. Legal responsibility, accounting records, ABN and business name. One of the most important features of a sole trader is personal responsibility. A sole trader and the business are not separate legal entities in the way that a company and its shareholders are separate. The owner is legally responsible for the business and its debts. This is why we say that a sole trader has unlimited liability. Unlimited liability means that if the business cannot pay its debts, the owner may have to use personal assets to meet those obligations. We will return to this point when we discuss the disadvantages of being a sole trader. There is, however, an important accounting distinction. Even though the owner and the business are not separate legal entities for liability purposes, accounting records should still keep the business transactions separate from the owner's personal transactions. For example, if the owner of Darwin Waterfront Café buys coffee beans for the cafe, that is a business transaction. If the same owner buys groceries for their home, that is a personal transaction and should not be recorded as a cafe expense. The idea is connected to the accounting entity concept, which we will discuss more fully in a later session. Now let's look at ABN. ABN stands for Australian Business Number. It's a unique 11-digit number used to identify a business or organization when dealing with government, other businesses, and the community. A useful way to remember the difference is this. A sole trader tells us how the business is owned. An ABN identifies the business. Most businesses need an ABN, although an ABN is not compulsory for every business situation. Applying for an ABN is free, and an eligible sole trader can apply online through the Australian Business Register or the Australian Government Business Registration Service. An ABN is also different from a business name. If a sole trader trades only under their own personal name, they generally do not need to register a separate business name. But if they trade under another name, such as Darwin Waterfront Café, That business name needs to be registered. Advantages of operating as a sole trader. Why might someone choose to operate as a sole trader? There are several advantages. First, the structure is relatively simple and inexpensive to establish compared with a company. This makes it attractive for many people who are starting a small business. Second, the owner has full control over the business. They can decide what products or services to offer, how to price them, when to open, who to employ, and how the business should develop. Decisions can often be made quickly because there is no need to obtain agreement from partners or shareholders. Third, the profits belong to the owner. After paying the expenses of the business and meeting tax obligations, the remaining benefit of the business belongs to the sole trader. Fourth, the administrative structure is generally simple than operating a company. There are still important record keeping, tax, and legal obligations, but the structure itself is less complex. Finally, a sole trader can build a very direct relationship with customers. In many small businesses, the owner is closely involved in the day-to-day work and can respond quickly to customer needs. So the main strengths are simplicity, control, direct decision making, and the owner's entitlement to the profits. Disadvantages and risks. The sole trader structure also has important disadvantages, and the biggest one is unlimited liability. Suppose Darwin Waterfront Café owes money to suppliers, has a business loan, and then experiences a serious fall in sales. If the cafe cannot meet its debts, the owner is personally responsible for those debts, depending on the circumstances and the law. Personal assets may be at risk. A second disadvantage is access to finance. A sole trader can certainly borrow money, and banks do lend to sole traders. However, the amount of finance available may be limited by the owner's own financial position, security, income, and ability to repay. A larger business structure may sometimes have more ways of raising capital. A third disadvantage is that responsibility is concentrated in one person. The owner may need to manage customers, employees, purchasing, marketing, bookkeeping, and many other tasks. This can create a heavy workload, particularly while the business is growing. A fourth disadvantage is continuity. Because the business is closely connected with one owner, illness, retirement, or the owner's decision to stop trading can have a major effect on the business. These disadvantages do not mean that a sole trader is a poor business structure. They simply show that every ownership structure involves a balance between risks and rewards. Darwin Waterfront Café example, tax treatment and recap. Let's bring everything together using our fictional example, Darwin Waterfront Café. Imagine that Maya decides to open the cafe as a sole trader. Maya is the only owner. She contributes some of her own savings as capital and may also obtain finance from family, friends, or a lender. She applies for an ABN and because she is trading under the name Darwin Waterfront Café rather than only under her personal name, she registers the business name. Maya controls the important decisions. She chooses the menu, sets prices, hires employees, and decides how the cafe will operate. If the cafe earns a profit, that profit ultimately belongs to Maya. If the cafe makes a loss, Maya bears that loss. The major risk is unlimited liability. If the business cannot pay its debts, Maya is personally responsible for them. For accounting purposes, however, Maya should keep the cafe's transactions separate from her personal spending. That gives us clear records of how the business itself is performing. For Australian income tax purposes, a sole trader does not lodge a separate income tax return for the business. The owner includes the business income and relevant business information in their individual tax return, along with other personal income that must be declared. Let's finish with a quick recap. A sole trader has one owner. The owner has control of the business and is entitled to its profits, but also carries the risks and has unlimited liability. A sole trader can employ other people. An ABN identifies the business. It does not describe the ownership structure. And although the owner and business are not legally separate for liability purposes, accounting records should still keep business and personal transactions separate. Here is a question to think about before our next lesson. What might happen if Maya wanted another person to join the business as a co-owner, contribute capital and share the responsibilities? That takes us naturally to our next ownership structure, the partnership. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next lesson.